Her. Bold. Brave. Her. With Dr. Pam Peeke.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pam Peeke, and this is episode 525 of the Bold and the Brave, Her podcast. Now, today, I am joined by, someone who is muscular. Her name is Bonnie Tsui. Am I saying that right?
Tsui. Bonnie Tsui.
Tsui. Okay. I'm just going to butcher everything. Everyone's so used to that. Tsui. All right. So she is a phenomenal writer. And needless to say, you know why I asked her to be on the podcast, because her book, oh my gosh, that just came out, is called On Muscle, the stuff that moves us and why it matters. Okay, Bonnie. All right. Now, she is a longtime contributor to the New York Times, is the author of this phenomenal book. And it's just like, I've already seen it in Wall Street Journal. It's just amazing. People are just picking this thing up and saying, okay, gotta read it. And what's really cool is your work has been everywhere. And you've been recognized and supported by Harvard, National Press Foundation, on and on and on. And here's the best part. You live, swim, and surf in San Francisco Bay Area. We love it. And of course, everyone out there on the Her podcast land knows that's my homie. That's where I was born and raised, San Francisco. And then I went on to Berkeley, where you are now. Bonnie, welcome to the Her podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Pam. I love communing with you about Berkeley, and we'll do it anytime you need to. So just give me a call.
Oh my gosh. I needed a refresher, I really did. And so what I always ask everyone, because you've written amazing books here, Women Soldiers, of the Civil War is one, American Chinatown, A People's History of Five Neighborhoods. I love this one, Why We Swim. All right. So as a triathlete, I'm still trying to figure that part out. But, and the, true story of the first woman to surf Mavericks. I mean, like crazy stuff. So I get the feeling like you like to swim, that you're athletic, and that all of this stuff turns you on. Now, why the muscle book? Why On Muscle?
Well, you read me correctly in that I love the water, I love surfing, I love being active, but I'm also, I'm a journalist, right? I'm a writer, and I'm just so curious about the world. And with muscle, it was one of those topics that struck me as I was kind of thinking about what's the next book after Why We Swim, and that could be in conversation with it, right? This something that we think about, we take for granted, maybe we don't give the credit it deserves. And muscle is absolutely, as you understand, one of those things where I've been thinking about it as the unsung heroes of our bodies. Just that, in the hierarchy of organ systems and tissues, muscle is not usually what people think. It's just always about the brain. And this is kind of like hierarchy of importance that we've kind of thinking about muscle as like less than or lesser than the brain, brain versus brawn, with like dumb jocks and, smart nerds and all that stuff. I mean, it really is this like funny dichotomy. But when you actually peel back those layers and understand what it is that muscle is doing in your body, for your body, it is the stuff that animates us in life. And in all the ways, not just mechanical motion, moving our skeletons around, but it's an endocrine tissue that is always talking to all of these parts of our bodies in ways that really change us and support our health and longevity throughout our lives.
So what's your own relationship with your muscles?
I think I'm pretty good friends with them. I grew up the kid of an artist. My father was a visual artist, a painter, when I was growing up, and he was also a martial artist. And so in his downstairs studio, my brother and I were trained up to be not only students of the body in terms of visual art and but understanding the human body as this, it is the vehicle we occupy through our lives, and it brings us such joy, and it is something to be elevated as such, right? So we were trained up from a young age to be doing karate and going on runs and swimming with my dad. And then also it was the body was beautiful because of what it could do, right? So sports really, and I know you'll understand this, like as an athlete, that sports was a thing, at least for me. It really it was what made me fundamentally understand my body as something that was capable of so much, was strong and powerful. And certainly as a girl and growing up and as a woman now, these aren't messages that we always receive, even now, culturally speaking, societally speaking, and certainly not across human history. And I love that continues to change and push towards strength and muscular strength for everyone.
What's the gig with women and muscles? Right. So I'm
right.
So I'm kind of going to this place. First of all, I had no choice. I'm built like a brick, house. And I if you go through your body, I think everyone should do this. It's your homework assignment. I'm looking at Bonnie. She's absolutely gorgeous. She looks lean and mean, like a fighting machine. Do not mess with this woman. So, but when it came to muscles, I grew up in an era, and I think you did too, where it was like thin is where it's at. And you want to be a thin person and all of that stuff, and skinny and whatever. And muscles were like, what? In a woman? That's crazy. Obviously, things are beginning to change because, girls through high school and the rest of it are now, hitting the weights, and suddenly it's like an okay thing. When I was coming through, the system is like, what is she doing over near the weights? I mean, she must be lost. She must be on her way to aerobics class. and she just stumbled upon some free weights. No, but have you ever just, Bonnie, I'm just curious. Have you ever looked at your body and said, OMG, I have the best muscles in this part of the body? So where are your hot muscles? Where are the hot muscles? I want to know.
Well, as a swimmer, I think shoulders, right? And I'm kind of like adjusting my shoulders to fill this little, square, this frame here for you.
No,
I love that we could do this.
Come on, let's do it together.
For you. We're gonna flex for you. It can't contain us. But it is true that again, like I think that I had some inoculation from my dad against the culture because he trained my brother and myself up to be in the same way, to embrace sports, to be, doing weights, to, he didn't treat us differently. And it was interesting because then when I would, to your point, like all of my girlfriends, my female good friends growing up, when we would go to a pool party, and I'm in my racing suit and I'm ready to go. And all the boys are also cannonballing and jumping in with abandon. And all the girls have like big t-shirts and afraid to show their bodies. And I'm like, okay, this was not in a time in which they were wearing these t-shirts to protect themselves from the sun. This is middle school. And they just were like, they were ashamed of their bodies because the cultural messaging was like, especially when you're hitting puberty, like your body is like doing things, it's being sexual, it's like something to hide. Maybe you have some shame around it. And whereas the boys all at that same age were like, my body is a joyful thing. Like it's something to, throw yourself with abandon into a pool, go swimming, race each other. Like, I don't care what I'm wearing as long as it's functional, right? Like swim trunks or whatever. And, we as women did not receive and still don't receive that same kind of messaging in society, from society. And again, like is always like a sort of pendulum swing of like how much, you know, fitness trends and wellness trends and health trends and also what's beautiful, beauty ideals and all that stuff kind of go back and forth. We've hit like the sort of 70s, there was like bodybuilding, and 80s aerobics, and then there's like the 90s kind of like heroin chic, and then, you know, all, and then like sort of where like strength training has kind of waxed and waned for as something that was sort of acceptable for women, like if you were like toned, right? Like thin and toned instead of like actually putting on muscle mass, which, you know, again, I think like even just in the last few years of writing on muscle and researching and observing what's been happening, I think the big difference now is this convergence of the fitness trends of women lifting weights, that it is acceptable and encouraged to do that, that to have a stronger, more muscular body, and the health science and messaging. That's right. You're nodding
Now
because
we're
you know what I'm
talking.
talking about, which is that the health messaging, because the critical mass of all of the science and studies is such that everyone, not just guys who look a certain way, you know, walking around the gym, everyone from my mom to myself to, you know, all these, everyone should be lifting weights, because strength training and muscle mass and muscle strength is so important to your overall health and health span as you get older. And that the age-related loss of muscle starts, I hate to tell you, in your 30s, and people don't realize that. But the messaging has been like such that now, like you go to for a checkup, you know, a physical to your primary care doctor, and your doctor will tell you, regardless of your age and gender and all of that, that strength training, resistance training, lifting weights is good for you, and that you should be doing it as part of your whole, you know, your whole cycle of activity and you know, exercise in your life.
Yeah, it's really cool. Most people know I'm with the American College of Sports Medicine, and we're the ones who really, you know, crank out the basic science data, and also, you know, the national guidelines on physical activity, things like that.
Right.
And what we now have, and Bonnie, you're so right. First of all, we have a way of measuring now. So I can't just say, oh, I'm a little muscular. Let's see how muscular you are. Get your ass over here and let's look at your body composition. And you could buy, you know, I mean, it's an app and a scale, and
Right.
you know, they may not be the world's most accurate, but I mean, you know, it's relative.
It gives you a baseline and understanding.
Baseline. Yeah. I mean, it's all relative. Stick with the same equipment and you'll follow yourself, whatever.
Right.
And most women, if I walked up to a woman right now, I'm going to walk up to you. Okay, I just walked up to you. All right, now, that was my little high heels. So how much muscle mass, lean body mass, right, for all intent and purposes, does an average woman, say around the age of 40, not a elite athlete, and she's not, you know, doing the shot put. So just an average woman, you know, kicking around, she's in her early 40s. How much lean body mass should she expect to be carrying if she's also an average height?
You should tell me. You tell me.
I'm going to tell you. I mean, the reason why I'm bringing this up is, you know, all we talk about is body fat percentage. It's like, oh my God, I'm 35%. It's like
Right.
I'll just float away in fat cells here. Okay, fine. There's that. We talk about bone mineral density on our DEXAs for bone scans. We measure that. But who the hell is measuring muscle? And the only way to be able to see that, you know, is with, you know, they have these body comp instruments, a body pod, and a million other ways. The ultimate gold, you know, the gold standard is underwater weighing. I actually had it done at the Cooper Center. Not recommended for the grand majority of people unless you like water. You do really well, Bonnie.
I would do
it's
it.
Like you get dunked down in this chair and you're like, how long am I down here for? But at the end of the day, the grand majority of women are in double digits. It's usually about 70-ish pounds-ish. It depends, right? And this is an average weighted woman. Women who are obese have a lot more muscle for the obvious reason. They literally are their own built-in power lifters. Because if you have to get out of a chair, you're hoisting an extra blah, blah number of pounds, 75, 100 pounds. That'd be like taking you, Bonnie, and slapping a vest on you with an extra 50 on and saying, here, sit here. Now get out of a chair. Good luck. So the only way to do that is to build muscle. Now, the sad part of that is if you're obese, the muscle actually is low quality because you have fatty infiltration into the muscle, and it's not the same thing as like your muscles, Bonnie, which are lean, mean fighting machines on the overall. I really get into this whole muscle thing. I just loved your book because it had such history in it. As I was looking at it, I was saying to myself, wow, this whole issue of muscle and strength, they go hand in hand. Here's a great little piece from your book. Okay. All right. Lifting a heavy thing. All right. Long conferred status, resources, land, women, rights, lifting an important heavy thing, not just any old heavy thing. Lifting an important heavy thing showed a man to be a warrior capable of defending his people and property. None of these little wusses of the 21st century. Okay, perhaps you could say it was a primitive way to identify what we now call leadership skills. Okay, but the traditions of stone lifting persist to this day from Iceland and India to Scotland and Spain. Feats of strength still capture our imaginations. Look and be amazed. Strength is something to be celebrated. I just thought that was so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
muscle
it is really,
and strength.
Yeah, it's fun to think about, how we got here, that we appreciate those things, and it is an unpacking of what it is that strength signifies, right? Like what events in human history, what practices, what value it had, right? So like, it's not, nowadays you could just, if you kind of like divorced it from that history, from that context, you're like, what is like, I don't need to lift a heavy thing. We live in a world of convenience, right? You and I do in this country, and like we can get anything with quite little effort. And of course, back it up, some thousands of years. And that was not the case. And so throughout human history, evolutionarily, it makes sense that physical strength was something that was valued, right? So because it was a way to get all of these things that were necessary for survival and then also success in a society. And of course, with human history, across human history, that has long been associated with men. And so, sort of fast forward back closer to our time, and, without the necessity for like physical success, physical strength on the savannah, or like, hunting and gathering and all that, like the need for that, then what does strength mean now, right? And it's still very much related to like displays of power, sort of like reproductive success, like all of these things that we think are attractive. Is like, this is all kind of based in a biological imperative. And it's so interesting to see how that still interacts with our cultural norms and what we think is beautiful and what we think is attractive and who we think should or should not have muscle. And again, this is like this whole male female thing where like in a society in which um, roles are very much gender binary, right? So like the men are like doing this and the women are doing this, the whole domestic sphere and all this stuff. Um, you see how like strength could be, only associated with men. Now, as like sort of over time, how that has changed, those norms have changed, those roles have changed. Then, if you're always thinking that men are this and women are this, if a woman starts to get stronger and bigger and physical, again, like visible signs of strength, physical strength, there is this sense societally, culturally, okay, what's going on there? What, like, is this wrong? Is this like a disruption of like the normal like balance of power? And again, it is power. Physical strength has historically been power. And then so now, what does that signify to us? Again, like we are creatures of categorization. We like to think about things in this way. Men are this, women are this, whatever. And it is actually how we think. And so it takes work, it takes time, it takes incremental change for certain things to then become the new norm, the new accepted thing. But I think what was so fun about this book is like, I love to investigate and explore what those through lines are, why, like those threads, again, these stories, because it is helpful to us. It's to understand where those things came from, where those ideas came from, so that we can kind of think for ourselves, again, anew, independently of like what it is to be strong and to be healthy. And, muscle being something that we all should have is, again, like this kind of newer paradigm.
If you don't know history, you don't know where any of this came from.
Yeah,
And this is
you don't
why I
know.
love, you're quite the historian on muscle. And when we come back, you're going to identify what the ideal body is. The Her podcast is sponsored by Solaray Vitamins, Minerals, and Herbs, all rooted in nature. In addition to women's multivitamins, Solaray, Solaray, is presenting the new Her Life Stages products, providing support for the menstrual years, including PMS, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, and even libido. This integrative holistic approach has a woman's back throughout her entire life journey. To learn more about Her Life Stages, you've got options. You can run on over to your local health food store or check it out at Whole Foods, Sprouts, Amazon, or scroll over to solaray.com and use promo code HER20 for 20% off your purchase. Women, Solaray's got your back. And we're back. All right. So you have a chapter here called The Ideal Body. You know that that's like clickbait right there. And it's all about like, what is this? And at what age and for whom, a male, a female? What is this ideal body thing? So, this is the Her podcast. Let's talk about a woman's ideal body. What's this concept now? What's the narrative today?
I mean, I think that men historically, and this really has been true in so many. I mean, everyone will understand this to be true when I say it. Men have been allowed a greater range of bodies that are attractive, appealing. You think about like a wiry marathoner, thin, muscular, but light on their feet, like this sprightly figure. And then you think about the far range on the other side, which is like this big football player or a wrestler who's like, or a strong man. And that's like big. I mean, that's like, such a huge range of bodies, like in between those two. And both of those are considered attractive, appealing, and so on and so forth. Think about that for women. Women have been allowed a much narrower band of body type, body ideals, beauty in magazine. I mean, all you have to do is look at our media landscape. It's kind of like, what who are the heroines, who are the heroes, who, and who is like the good guy, the bad guy, like sort of like these are cultural tropes that are actually useful because they're visually demonstrating like for us what we think is appealing and also what's good and bad, quote unquote good and bad. And I think that again, over time we have become more, we have allowed ourselves more of a bigger range for women, for beauty standards, but it's still pretty narrow. I mean, again, like think about, oh gosh, like Pilates body, like a Pilates body is like, you're allowed to be strong, but not too strong. Like, or like you're allowed to be muscular, but not too muscular. And it's sort of like, it's so absurd that these are phrases and words that are actually like thrown about, like even with athletes who are like, again, like we said, with sports, functionally, they have to have this in order to perform well in whatever it is that they're doing. And yet they're criticized for being too much of that. And so that is just something that I wanted to interrogate in this book. And also like, I thought it would be fun. One of the questions I posed in the book that I thought would be so fun to ask anatomy professors at UCSF medical school is like, what muscles actually, if you were asking a Hollywood trainer to train like an actor, male and female, to be a superhero, like for a Marvel superhero movie, what muscles would you focus on to give this outward appearance of strength and beauty? And are those muscles actually the most functional for strength? And it was so fun. I love that these anatomists at the med school like actually like went all in and said, and kind of broke it down for me. But it was such a fun exercise because it's sort of like, for example, for like Captain America type, like Chris Evans, you've got like the big traps, thick neck, like big biceps and deltoids and pectorals, and of course the six pack and all this stuff, and trapezius, the lats and the trapezius to kind of like give this like diamond shape, narrow waist. And then for women, it's not the same. It is like you can be toned, but you're like, but you need kind of boobs and a butt to kind of balance out like the show
TNA.
Femininity, because it's like, again, it's like this visual signaling thing, because if people see, and by people I'm saying like, a sort of like vast American audience, Western audience was looking at this, and if someone is quote unquote too much, you can't be too extra, because then like the sort of like visual understanding from your audience is like they feel that it is wrong. They feel like it is disrupting this balance of like male and female, like heroic, gender norms. It has to be in a particular category. Because if you're getting like a neck that's too thick for a woman, I mean, too much muscular, it's too masculine. And like, so people do not like that. It's like, like we were talking about the human brain, like wanting to categorize things instinctively. And it's like how we talk about it culturally and societally, like really reveals our prejudices against that. We don't like those disruptions. And so I think that's where a lot of like the interesting cultural critique and breakdown and kind of peeling back can happen.
It's so interesting as I listen to you. You're so damn smart about this. And
Dr. Kate, come on.
I know, seriously. So here we go. I think of Misty Copeland, the famous black ballerina with the American Ballet Theater. And she was constantly told in ballet class, I actually was a graduate of San Francisco Ballet, so I understand the torture chamber, the lovely time I had there. And so daily weighings, there's no shaming there. And so they would walk up to her and they would say, "You're too muscular. You're too muscular." And it's like she can't, right? She cannot control how big her calves got, and her quads, which are nice and long and amazing, but they're like an anatomical chart. They're
Yeah.
so beautifully defined, but it's not like the classic little, ballerina type who's sort of straight up and down. Very powerful, don't get me wrong, but it looks different. There's not like that long, sinewy versus the
Right.
muscular.
It was so interesting to look up all of the things that have been said and written about Misty Copeland in this context, right? So like because she was
Unbelievable.
it's crazy. So you'll read, I will encourage anyone who's interested in this to really look it up because like you'll see these, magazine and newspaper stories, how they describe her. And she always, and if you look at like images of her, video of her dancing, I mean, she's extraordinary. She is stunning. She is like a once in a generation talent. And it is so interesting to kind of then juxtapose that against all of these criticisms that she got for being quote unquote too muscular. And she has talked about this really eloquently, and again, like this is where muscularity and where it is accepted or not accepted in society, it can be an indicator for so much more than what it is at face value, right? Like sort of
Can I just tell you something that just like totally, came to my brain here? So when I wrote my first book, and it went on to become a New York Times bestseller, and they invited me to all these all these lovely book meetings, where they have all the publishers and whatever. And I remember it was a very famous book meeting, and it was hot. It was in some hot southern state. I don't know. And I was wearing a shift dress, because my God, it was hot. So it was sleeveless, whatever. And so I'm sitting there, they asked me to give like a little keynote thing. So I was doing that and I'm waving my arms around and whatever. One of the guys came up to me who's in terrible shape, walked up to me afterwards. He said, "May I make a suggestion? You need to it was beautiful talk. Excellent. Your book, it's crushing it. So it's great. You need to put something over your arms." Okay, that one, seriously, that came out of left field. I'm like, my arms, Jesus, did I break out in a rash or something?
Right, and are you're trying to compute what is it that he's trying to tell you?
Like, what's wrong with my arms? And he goes, well, I said, I'm so sorry. My apologies. What's wrong with my arms? And he says, well, there are some people here who feel intimidated by those.
Wow.
And I said, what I really wanted to do was punch him out, but we didn't.
Punch him out with your arms, with those beautiful
my arms. Just take my arms and crush him. So I was cool. I was totally cool. I said, oh, okay, whatever. And of course, I kept them open the entire meeting, and I had a matching sweater, but like the hell, I'm going to put that thing on. But I sat with that for a minute. No one has ever said that to me before. And now it's like a badge of honor to be able to walk around and show that you have muscularity,
right?
That you worked hard for. You look phenomenal, Bonnie. It's clear that you work hard for that and that you're cross-trained. I could see your shoulders and it was just amazing. And so it's interesting, the things that have gone on with people's perceptions of other people's bodies, especially a woman.
Especially women.
See, he was telling me what to do as a woman.
Yes, it's so interesting because, like you said, how weird it is from this perspective, right now to say, but it still happens. How weird is it to recount this story and understand that there was a kind of threat there to this guy, or he was vocalizing. He's saying like, some people here are gonna feel uncomfortable or threatened by your muscular arms, and it's so funny to look at it now. We may think about it with humor, but I think that he was serious. He was like offering you some piece of advice that he thought was going to be useful for you because you don't want to be intimidating other, some guys here might be not like that, or somebody might think you're, like you're, again, too muscular often is like too masculine. But what does too masculine mean? Too masculine means you have too much power. Like we don't like that feeling. We feel destabilized by that. And it's so funny because when you kind of ask like what muscle is, again, like, right, that muscle is something we often don't realize. It's kind of seen as lesser than and whatever. But all like our conversation is basically underscoring how significant muscles are to the cultural conversation, to your self and perception and presentation, and how someone will perceive you. And I find that stuff fascinating. I love that we're talking about this.
Isn't that wild? Well, one of my favorite chapters in your book on muscle was who's afraid? No, it's not a Virginia Woolf. No, who's afraid of a lady Hercules? So I'm going to read from it. A muscular woman has historically been a difficult woman. Difficult. The way we perceive beauty in the muscular form is influenced by many factors, not the least of which is gender, right? The difficulty I've come to understand is rooted in disruption. Through the ages, muscular women have disrupted the equation of men with strength and women with weakness that underpins gender roles and power relations. And this was, from a book that was called Venus with Biceps. And this was a history of strong women that explores femininity and muscularity through a wide-ranging collection of vintage posters, comic books, advertisements, photographs, and other goodies. So I just thought that that first sentence, I was like, yeah, right. Muscular women are difficult women. We are difficult women. Yeah. That's what we are.
And, and that's like your story is so perfectly illustrates that because, strength is not a zero-sum thing, right? Like, I can be strong, you can be strong, we can be strong together. It doesn't take away from each other's strength. However, there is a perception, especially, again, like we said, when society is divided in gender roles that are binary and there's an association of strength with one of them, like there is this threat. There is a feeling of like, if you are this, it takes away from me. And that's why it's so funny. I say funny because I just find the logic so like pretzeling that like if a woman is powerful, has a role in society that is above a man, there are still many, many men, and let's look at what's happening in America today, who are threatened by that and don't then try to claw back that power and are uncomfortable with this turn of events. And again, like to them, there's like a upending of what is quote unquote normal and what is quote unquote right in terms of who should be holding power. And so again, we're seeing a lot of like regressive stuff going on in politics. And I think that really does reflect a lot of this, like our societal discomfort with, sometimes often powerful women, both being visible, out there and physically powerful. So yeah, it's a big thing to unpack, as you know, with this podcast.
I'm loving this conversation because this is really, kind of taking us through quite a bit of the trajectory of what's been going on with women's bodies. There's a lot of back and forth, little pendulum stuff going on. All over TikTok, there's thinspiration, right. Skinny, the skinny hashtags. And I'm like, no, if anyone ever called me skinny, I'd slap them. What I am is fit. You tell me I'm fit, toned, and I look athletic. Okay, now I love you. All right. Don't you ever call me anything else. And that's the way it is. And that should be true for, a grand majority of people. There's none of this silliness with, it just makes me crazy when I see these young influencer types, who are pushing these crazy ways to manipulate their bodies through starvation. And
it's scary. It's frightening. Well, so that's like that's the like dangerous, scary end of these influencers, thin influencers, I guess you could call them. But I would say one silver lining of social media being a place for body representation and can be a place where you find your tribe, you find your community. And so like one way in which this has happened, I think that can be seen as a positive thing is that now you can see this huge range of bodies that we talked about, of strength and beauty and reinforce. It's weird because like our media landscape now is so fractured, and so you can actually find whatever it is that you're looking for pretty granularly. And so that is, I guess what I'm saying is that's both a positive and a negative. Like you can find, to some people actually, if you only consume like a certain subset of that media, it's like, oh, you can perceive this world again like anything else right now, like as you see it. You can perceive it as you want it to be seen. So which means that you could like, oh, now everyone is like dieting, or everyone is lifting weights, or everyone is this, and and it's so interesting because it's like a warped view of reality. And so in some ways you can kind of just tailor it to what you want to see and what your worldview is. And so that's really, I think that's dangerous. But on the other hand, you can actually see a bigger range of that, like a bigger range of what beauty and bodies are. So yeah, it's again, like, I feel like it is, it's like a Pandora's box that is just spewing everything. And so it's, you can't put it back. So it's like, how do we live with it? Right.
Well, it's the woman's body in general. So let's take it to a very interesting nuance: the GLP-1 drugs. Now, these GLP-1s, there was a little, oh, by the way, or whoopsie, side effects, and that is when people were taking them, they were dropping muscle mass much faster than if you were just doing it like with diet and exercise alone.
Right.
Normally, you drop about 25% of your total body weight, which would be muscle. If you're dropping, you're 50 pounds, 75 pounds, whatever the issue may be, that's normal. Why? Because if you dropped 50 pounds, you don't need the muscle to hoist those 50 pounds. So the muscle will obviously recede. You won't be using it like that. Whereas with the GLPs, it's 40% or more. It's almost 50%, which is horrific, because if you gain the weight back, you gain back all fat, no muscle. And so now you're even, as it were, fatter than you were to start with. And then the whole thing becomes a vicious cycle of nastiness. So it's interesting that nobody gave a damn about muscles. They were only looking at weight and fat with the GLPs, and then it was like an oopsies. And now all the big pharma are scampering, and they're adding all kinds of interesting ingredients into the baseline GLP to be able to mitigate the loss of muscle through a whole bunch of different pathways, depending upon which chemical they're using, as it were. So muscle all of a sudden became a thing, and people started thinking about that. Yeah, it was like where it was at. So it's having its day, which is why your book on muscle, when we write books, isn't it funny? It's all about timing. It's like,
and
what's going to happen?
You cannot anticipate. You have no idea.
No. When I wrote The Hunger Fix about the science of food and addiction, swear, I cannot make this up. 2 months earlier, the first textbook from all the top academicians came out on food and addiction. I'm like, yeah. So mine's the consumer one. Yours is the academic one. We're loving each other. It's all good. But I mean, right now, this is so spot on. It's kind of crazy. And you looked at shoulders. I loved the shoulder chapter because, as we all know, it's the burden. It's the burden on our shoulders, and they're all squared away and all the rest of it. So now what happens is that you talk about how muscles talk, as it were. They do. So what does that actually mean? They talk.
I love this quality of muscle. I've been thinking about it as muscles being really chatty, right? They're smart and they have conversations and they're really good at conversations with other parts of our bodies. And really, I think people know generally about muscles being the things that move our bodies around, but they don't really think about them as endocrine tissues. Again, signaling hormones that kind of travel all around your body to tell them to do other things that are beneficial for your body. And so when you move, your muscles are moving you, and immediately within a few minutes of exercise, like all these changes are happening because of that conversation, that like all this wash of chemicals across your body, within your body, ramping up metabolism, like regulating certain hormonal responses in your brain. Again, tamping down inflammation, like stimulating immune responses, and all of this stuff. Like even there was a recent Harvard study that also talked about like specific immune cells in your muscles that are activated. Like, they're knowing now there are sites of activity in muscle that, again, like the emission of the secretion of signaling molecules that then travel around your body to affect other systems. Like, I just think like this crosstalk, not just between brain and muscle, but in all other, like with the immune system, also with like your cardiovascular health. Like it's, I think muscle health is cognitive health, is cardiovascular health, is all of this stuff. The connection between the correlation between grip strength and your mortality, your mortality and longevity. And it's like bananas, right? It's like such a funny, it's a proxy, but it is, it's not
it's
like
close.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's pretty damn good. So, at the end of the day, what I want all the women out there in the Her Podcast land to know is I am now giving you permission to build some beautiful muscles and to feel fit. Don't do it. This is not about appearance anymore. Okay. Appearance is great. That's like a secondary, tertiary kind of situation. Yes, obviously you're going to look better. Fit people just look better. Their faces are glowing, the whole gig. No problem. Start wherever you are. But at the end of the day, challenge yourself with performance. Get out of your head and look at yourself doing something. Maybe challenge yourself with your first 5K. Challenge yourself with some cycling. Challenge yourself with some swimming. Anything you want, but concentrate on that and that level of fitness and performance. And then you stop doing this weird thing about how much do I weigh today? It's like, what is my weight? What is my dress size? Stop it already. The more fit you are, you will end up just settling somewhere amazing, whatever that is unique to you. I'm headed to the Senior Olympics next week, where I sit on the board, and we have a really good time. So we have actually an astounding number of competitors from around the country. So we have almost 13,000. Actually, I think
jealous.
It's more than 13,000. It's so much fun. So you have to be 50 or over. And when I say over, I mean it kind of goes all the way to the end. And so there's no limit here, but you've got to be at least 50. And the average age is 68. The average fitness age is 25 years younger. So it's kind of a wild group. What I find, I'm fascinated looking at the muscles and the body composition of these happy campers. So, for instance, there's a 59-year-old Jamaican woman, so she's black, who is built like a brick. She's a sprinter. So, sprinters are much more muscular. They've got those beautiful big thighs, and they're explosive powerhouses to do the 50, the 100,
be explosive.
the 400. Oh, yeah. So she's the world record holder for her age. She's 59. Now, there's a picture of her that I saw that flitted by, and I quickly grabbed it. And she was on the track, and it's a side photo of her. So you can see her, with her arms up, and she's rocking it, doing the 50, right? And there's a little bit of fat that's like right over her very tight, lower part of her outfit, which looks more like a bathing suit kind of thing, because it's the runner's outfit. And I could see that. And then I could also see her muscles of her abdomen, because she's wearing a sport bra, and that it's your classic sprinter outfit kind of thing. And I saw that and I said, that's crazy. I love it. She's got a little extra, padding, which, by the way, there's huge science here. You need that as you get older. Number one. Number two, she's got muscles that are insane, but does she have an absolutely perfect six-pack? No, she does not. Her legs are insane. So she's got this 59-year-old body. She is the world record holder. This did not stop her from, being a champion athlete. So what I'm really saying is that it's all about really getting into fitness, performance, if just your own little performance, you against you, and getting out of all these weird narratives in your head about I should be a size 4.
And focusing on what movement brings you joy, like really, it's like, it could be swimming, it could be dancing, it could be cycling, it could be going for long hikes, like it could be anything. And that it is never too late to do the thing that will make you stronger and happier. And like to your point about these senior athletes, I mean, like their health and their muscularity is off the charts. It is never too late to build muscle, because your muscles are among the most adaptive tissues in your body. And you start working out, you will understand that like in a month's time, you will feel like a different person. And I think to your question earlier, I was thinking about this. I met a gentleman at the Aspen Ideas Festival where I was speaking last month. And he had just been on GLP-1, like put on GLP-1s, and was like feeling the healthiest he'd ever felt in like decades. He said, I've lost all this weight. I feel really good. The one thing that I'm lacking is muscle. And I said, well, have you ever, lifted weights or worked with a strength trainer? And he said, I just started. And I said, you know what? Call me in a month. You are going to feel amazing. And he's like, he's 65. He said, is it too late for me? And I said, not at all. And it was so great to be able to say that to him, because like all of these studies of all of these older, like older study participants who were like, maybe some of them had been lifelong exercisers, or maybe some of them had actually just started, had never had a regular exercise practice. The gains are incredible. How you feel day to day, week to week, month to month. It's just like it's really inspiring to know that we are all capable of change. And that's what muscle tells us.
I could talk to you forever. And so my team has just anointed you as a repeat offender, meaning that you will be back many times to help set the record straight on all of this. And I want to get into that swimming book too as well. How can people learn about your work?
You can visit my website, which is bonnietsui.com, BONNIET as in Tom, S as in Sam, UI.com, and on Instagram, bonnietsui8, the number 8. Yeah, I would love to hear from you.
And all I can tell you is that this book, I just basically absorbed it in a way. It's like carrot cake. You take a whole piece and then you just kind of like piece by piece by piece, because it was so rich. It was absolutely rich. So the book is on muscle, the stuff that moves us and why it matters. Bonnie, you're absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for being on the Her podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And now I also want to thank my sponsor, Solaray, vitamins, minerals, and herbs rooted in nature, and the new Her Life Stages products. Scope them all out at solaray.com. Now take a moment, leave us a review, because we love to hear from you. That's what we do. We sit around and we do that. All right. This has been a production of Podcast Health. And I got a little reminder for you. Your time in this world may be limited, but the things you can do with that time are not. So get on out there, seize the day, carpe diem, and really rock it. Build some muscle too while you're at it. Thanks for listening, everyone.